Hey everyone, Scott Fawcett here. Obviously, I've got my COO, college sales rep, and general overall genius, Alex Wong, with us. Although I'm the one that has designed and created this app, Alex actually knows how to use it significantly better than I do at this point. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to just go through all the features in the Decade app. It's been since 2021 since I've created one of these videos. So, we've added a lot of features, changed the way some of the formatting works, and I'm just going to throw it over to Alex. I'm going to interject with thoughts and comments throughout, probably, but we're going to listen to Alex explain the app to us.
All right, thanks. So first and foremost, I just wanted to first debut the new layout that we're going to be releasing publicly relatively soon. I think you guys will just notice that it's a lot more modernized, and most importantly, I think Scott and I agreed that we really want to kind of separate ourselves from this common idea that we're just simply a stats platform, right? Decade has so much more to offer than just calculating your strokes gained. And it starts with our robust library of training videos. And for the 2026 year, Scott and I have committed to uploading more content. And that comes in the form of we're probably going to do more interviews, we're going to do some more long form content, and we're definitely going to be adding some more short form content. And along with that, we have a new layout. So just wanted to kind of give you guys a glimpse of what it's going to look like. You can see here we already have some 3-minute videos from Scott, some 6-minute videos, and then some podcasts. So be on the lookout for that. But we really want to encourage players and users to take advantage of the video library because it is the most robust training library for golf on the internet.
It is the point of Decade.
Yeah, literally, like we're here to teach you to score, not to tell you what your strokes gained or lost are, because like you can do that anywhere. We're here to teach you and empower you to make good decisions on the golf course so that you can shoot your best scores. Um, so the next thing I wanted to touch on, right, is driving targets. A lot of you may not know that this feature exists, but driving targets, with the college players and the juniors I work with, this is such a integral part of the process to prepare for an event, right? I always look at Decade's features kind of under two umbrellas. You have the preparatory side, and then you kind of have like that evaluatory side. And the preparatory side is just so important because tools like this, like driving targets, you guys are living in the age of technology where you can literally scout a golf course and probably get the answer to 90% of your tee shots simply by going through here and navigating, spending 10 to 15 minutes going through the course, changing your driving cones to fit your own personal carry numbers and dispersions. And then you can literally just cycle through the course and get a sense of what to expect, right? So you can look at this. This is Inverness Golf Club here in Ohio. From the back tees, we can see a 300-yard carry puts us exactly in line with this fairway bunker. Well, how nice would it be before you get to the course to kind of be able to scout this course and understand what your tee strategy is going to be and which holes you kind of need to keep a watchful eye on as you're playing your practice round and making it more efficient while also conserving your energy and your time.
What Alex just said there really is the point of this. It's about making your practice round as efficient as possible, and adding those width portions to it is what really separates us from a lot of the other companies. You need to know how wide certain areas are, and so then when you get out there and actually play your practice round, you're just ready to go. And like Alex said, 15, 20 minutes tops ahead of time, and your practice round will become so straightforward. And this is by far a better way to do it than just actually going out and playing a practice round and seeing what you see out there. You have to be able to see the stuff from a satellite image.
Yeah, and it's just so important to remind users, like what Scott said, a lot of players think they'll just go figure it out in the moment. And we have to remember that you're just course designers are tricking you on the golf course, right? They're intentionally trying to deceive you and make you uncomfortable. And so what a relief it would be to kind of have this imagery and know precisely I've got 65 yards of width here, which means that's enough room for me to send driver. And from then on, I can just focus my energy on figuring out the rest of the nuances about the golf course.
I will
And
say thank you, Alex, for choosing Inverness because that is where my fight in Texas Aggies won the NCAA championship. Whoop!
oh well, it's one of my favorite courses that I've gotten to play. So why I have it, and it's strategically pretty fascinating. One other important piece to this is if you actually go through the driving targets, you're able to transpose the driving targets directly onto the yardage books that you can download. And For those who may not know, we have a global yardage book library. Extremely popular and, most importantly, extremely cost effective. And frankly, they pay for themselves. If you're buying the Decade app and you're using the yardage books, it's going to pay for your subscription in orders of magnitude.
And you see right there, there's a toggle in the middle where it says exclude driving targets. So the default is to include them. And if you just want a clean book, you can also exclude those. But like Alex just said, that really was my goal with when we created these was to basically have the app pay for itself. If you're a person who buys any yardage books at all on an annual basis, especially junior golfers, college golfers, where you're buying a lot, the app is quite literally free or actually has an ROI, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah, and the yardage books are printable, and so when you go through this process, you can actually select at the end what type of file you wish to download. And so the consecutive yardage book is the great one to have kind of on your camera roll for your phone, and then the collated yardage books are the ones that you can simply download a PDF file and print on your at-home printer. Or I personally like to take it to my FedEx office. They have one of those self-print stations, and you can just use their industrial-sized printers, put it on legal paper, black and white. It costs about $3.50, and then it's convenient because they have all of the tools there to kind of cut the paper and bind it together. So aside from yardage books, like I said, those are kind of like the preparatory side of things. And then now I want to jump over to the evaluatory side. And this is obviously the stats portal. And this is what the homepage looks like when you log in, right? And I really wanted to cover how you utilize this information to identify your leaks, your weaknesses in your game, and your strengths, and hopefully get the best ROI for your practice. So going through my stats, you can see here I have a scoring average of 72.6. So I am in this middle column. This is kind of my peer group that I'm being compared to. Everything to the left of that, all of the green checks, those represent areas where I'm kind of overperforming my peer groups. And then most importantly, the way you should be using this is you should kind of just be scrolling down and looking for everything on the right side, and specifically little clusters of X's, because these clusters are going to represent areas of general weakness. So as you can
Alex
see,
chips one-handed for the record.
yeah, I hit all shots 50 yards and in one-handed, and that is strongly reflected by my data. Data never lies, right? So you can kind of see this enormous red monster here that clearly tells me that I suck at chipping, I suck at pitching, and this is what I need to work on to get my scoring average lower than 72. But again, as I mentioned, the way to utilize this data is you're kind of looking down, looking for red X's, and this will hopefully be a guide of the things you need to work on, oftentimes the lowest hanging fruit for you to elevate your game to the next peer group.
And the one thing that I really liked that I added back in the day was this strokes gained putting on saves, because that really helps you explain if you're chipping poorly, like knowing that you're putting good or bad specifically on these up and downs, which which obviously directly impacts your save percentage overall. I think that's one stat that I haven't seen a whole lot of other companies throw out there, and I really think that's an important one.
Yeah, so moving on, right? Obviously, it's very important for us to kind of understand how to input quality data, and quality data is just so critical to getting quality feedback. So I wanted to just quickly walk through the steps of putting in data, and for those who may not be familiar, we last year released a second style of data entry called the Tiger 5 entry. So I'm going to touch on that first. Tiger 5 entry is a expedited form of data entry, and you can see here the interface is slightly different, and the questions and the data you need to input are considerably reduced than the GPS entry. So here we're simply putting the score that we scored on the hole, any Tiger 5 mistakes that we have made, checking if we hit the green in regulation. We're still putting in the oh so important strokes gained putting data. And then we're also just going to check if we hit a mental mistake, what that mental mistake was. And then we are really encouraging people to be using this notes section as an area for you to be journaling and to add context to the Tiger 5 mistake that you've made. Because as you know, we're going to forget details weeks, months down the road. And it's just so crucial for us to kind of jot down and journal the type of mistakes that we made, whether it may be uncommitted on our club selection or the direction of the wind or too concerned about the slope of the green on our approach shot, these little clues will oftentimes, as they repeat, be areas that we just notice patterns that we're overthinking shots or overcomplicating situations instead of simplifying them.
And the reason that I included this was because when I used to play professionally in my 20s, we would just go to the Outback or Chili's and just laugh about all the dumb stuff we did. And I think in hindsight, I just thought that in order to stop making bogeys inside 150 yards, I just needed to get better at golf. It never dawned on me that maybe I needed to choose some slightly more conservative targets and that my game was already good enough. So what this allows you to do is rather than be me and not even think about your mistakes you're making strategically and mentally, is you start creating a little, like Alex said, a little journal of stuff. And then importantly, you need to review it. I would highly suggest if you putted poorly in a golf tournament, you would go practice your putting for hours. But we all know that we make mental and strategic mistakes, but then we don't actually put any time into thinking those through and how could I do better with that next time. So enter your Tiger Five mistakes. Take some time after a round. Journal what you. And it might have just been bad golf, but journal if you weren't committed to your target. Exactly what was going on. Was I thought the cut was going to be 2 shots ahead of where I was, so I tried to force some things coming in, and then you know what? Lo and behold, the cut was actually exactly the number I was on. Stuff like that that you want to remind yourself in the future, and then it's going to compile into just a little journal, like Alex said, and you want to review that before you play, so that way you don't make the same mistakes too often. I started to
Yeah.
say again, but too often is definitely more of the correct answer.
Yeah. So the
And the
next
one
thing,
thing I'll say about strokes gained putting here is what we're tracking is what we call the speed ratio. So we only need to know total putts and what your first putt length was. And what we want to do then is track how many inches long or short on all of your putts that are outside of 10 feet. Even if you make a 10-foot putt, we want to guesstimate how far past the hole it would have gone. So if it barely falls in the front lip, obviously it got to the hole. So let's just call that 1 inch. And if you ram it into the back of the hole, maybe that would be 3 or 4 feet by. But you want to just kind of guesstimate because what the speed ratio is, it's the combined footage of your putts that are 10 feet and longer. So let's just pretend we had a 10-footer and a 12-footer, and that was it. We have 22. And then your total inches long and short on those putts, and then you want to get that ratio to 1.5 and higher. Again, we'll do all that math for you in the app, but we want to get that ratio to at least 1.5. This is something that was created by Chris Zambri when he was the head coach at USC. He's now runs the USGA's national golf team, so this guy knows what he's doing, and this is what he created for his players like Justin Suh and Jamie Lovemark and all these guys that are out on tour now. And tracking this is a really important thing so we can start to realize, understand, do we need to work on our speed? Do we need to work on our line? Like, what's really going on here? Are we leaving too many putts short? Are we not leaving enough putts short? There's just a lot of stuff that we can start to figure out on different 5 foot, 15 to 20 foot, 20 to 25 foot buckets. This is critical. Strokes gained driving and approach are pretty flawed for a number of reasons, which is why in the Tiger Five, I'm not even trying to get those. But strokes gained putting works pretty well for the most part. Obviously, there's some other factors like how slopey were the greens or how fast were the greens, but generically it works much better than approach and driving does. And the last thing I'll say on this and throw it back to Alex is I think we've lost sight of the purpose of statistics during this strokes gained revolution that obviously I and Mark Brody are largely responsible for. The point of statistics is to tell you what to work on, not to give you some touchy-feely strokes gained approach or driving or whatever number. The point is to tell you what to work on. And so that's through combinations of your strokes gained approach, your greens and regulation, your strokes gained putting, and penalty rate off the tee, whatever. We can start to say it's most likely your long game, it's most likely your tee shots, it's most likely your short game, depending on how many two chips you have, and then deliver that information to you, which again, I'll say it one last time, that's the point of statistics.
yeah, moving on, we got the GPS entry, which most of you guys are familiar with, right? So, kind of wanted to quickly walk through what this process looks like. And you can see it's a lot more detailed, which is why you get a lot more of that granular shot by shot level data. But this first screen, you're simply entering in your score, you're putting in your putting data again, and then once you hit save, you'll move on to this screen, right? And again, a lot of you guys are familiar with this, but we usually start up at the green. And because I've already put in my putting data, you can see putt number one was 22 feet. Well, this white dot, my first putt, is already locked into the hole location. And all I have to do is move it around to where it was on the green, and then I can drag this white dot. And then from there, I work my way back to the tee. So I got my hole location and putts situated, and then now I zoom out, and then I'm dragging this dot. And again, you can see that there's a dynamic counter here to tell you the distance to the pin. It's not so important to nail that to the exact yard. The importance is really making sure, as you see in the upper right corner, we've got this little red dot, and we want to make sure that we nail the surface. So in this example, right, if I'm in the fairway bunker, I really need to make sure that this red dot is in the fairway bunker. Otherwise, when the system calculates your strokes gained information, it's not going to be entirely accurate. So you really want to just pay extra attention to make sure that this red dot accurately reflects the type of surface that your shot was on, for the purposes of strokes gained.
The one thing I'll add for just the basic normal member, just use the Tiger 5 entry. If you just play a hole that's pretty generic, you hit the fairway, you hit the green, you two putted from 28 feet, I don't really need to see all of that shot by shot data. But if a Tiger 5 mistake is made or a mental scorecard mistake is made, then it will prompt you to enter the stroke level detail. And the goal of that is that you're going to compile this PDF of those mistakes to then take to your instructor and be like, or a decade certified pro and just be like, what did I do wrong here? What could I have done differently? That's again the goal of this detailed entry. You just don't really need to use this full GPS entry. Obviously, you can if you've got an instructor that you're really getting granular with, or if you're someone who's really trying to get to the professional golf level, you need to take a little bit more time and probably enter this. But for my normal member, the vast majority of you, that Tiger 5 entry is everything you need.
Yeah. And so once you go through hole by hole, you'll get to this final screen. And this final screen is simply just asking you to verify certain situations. So for example, maybe I must have had like a sideways dot on number 5. So it's asking me, was it a recovery shot or were you actually intending on trying to advance the ball onto the green? So you just check.
Sideways dot meaning you just clearly chipped out of some trees or something like that.
Yeah, so this is just verifying this information. You click finalize, and then the system is going to tabulate everything for you. So you can see here, I've got my scorecard, and then I've also got kind of the generic stats that you're used to seeing. So greens in regulation, your proximities, your make rates, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's just a couple of really cool tabs that I wanted to highlight on this page, okay? So number one is this strokes gained one. I personally love this one because you can use the highlighting mechanism to just kind of recognize like what situations did I have some major gains or major losses. And like I think the rule of thumb I like to use is right around that half stroke lost is kind of like that big miss. And it's usually reflective of either a really, really bad swing or probably a strategic error. But this is just a really great way to get a snapshot of visualizing how your like the cadence of your round went.
As
Um,
Alex just said, that lost 0.5 or more, those are the shots you really just want to kind of drill into and make sure that you look at them and see if, again, if there was something you did with the lack of commitment. Because as Alex said, these are the big misses that we really impacted our score. One funny thing about this is identical to the PGA Tour shot link display. Actually sent a copy of that to my program and said, this is kind of what it should look like. And then he turned it around. It looks exactly like it. I'm like, well, fair enough. So this is exactly what the PGA Tour looks like.
Yeah, and if you want to get in the weeds, you can look at your shots on an individual shot by shot basis, right? So this just gives you a isolated number for every shot that you hit throughout the round, and then you can also look at it on a hole by hole basis to kind of get that like horizontal view for every single hole. And then my favorite and one that I think is underused by members is the decade link, right? So the decade link is terrific because you're able to kind of review your round and see all of the dots with the whole layovers. But my favorite feature on it is actually this coaching moments tab. And what this is the system has some automatic triggers that will identify potential mistakes that you may have made. The goal of this is really to just kind of streamline likely mental mistakes, likely strategic mistakes. And so if you click that, you instantly get feedback. And in this example, we've got two great ones that Scott can kind of dive into deeper about why and why exactly the system thinks this is worth looking at.
Well, this is honestly, I never really thought of it this way, but this is kind of the precursor to the Tiger 5. This was something we created early on in the app, and now we just focus so much on the Tiger 5. But you can see in the top one, it says recovery shot from off the fairway did not travel at least 50% of the distance to the left of the hole, meaning you chipped this one out, so you definitely look like you chipped it out. But let's pretend that that dot, instead of being over there, the third dot, instead of being over there, was in the right rough. I would probably assume that you hit a tree and it stayed there, rather than it looks like you made the correct decision just trying to get it back in play. And then it finds the one below, more than one chip per hole. Were you really short-sighted and tried to get too cute with a chip shot? That's a really interesting looking green there.
That's a
Uh,
really hard one-handed shot, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why you had more than one chip on that hole. But so it's got just different triggers. First putt missed by more than 10% of the length of the putt on a putt outside of, I think it's 20 feet, maybe 25 feet, because we're really trying to find where were your really bad lag putts at. Was there something that, again, is it a constant theme of it's my uphill, it's my downhill, it's across a ridge? 10% of the length of the putt is a great lag putt, really from anywhere outside of 25 feet. So we just want to be investigating the ones that did not meet that criteria and figuring out if we could have done something better.
Yeah, so this coaching moments tab is a must visit. If you're putting in the time to put in the GPS entry, you need to pay attention to this coaching moments because it is the quickest. Again, it's instantaneous, right? So it's just a great way to get immediate feedback and give you some shots to give some pause and reflect upon whether or not they could have been avoided. And then the last piece of features that I think are kind of underutilized is simply our combines, right? Combines are just a great way to kind of structure your practice, and there's no better combines in the app than our sim putting ones, right? So we recently released our money zone sim putting, which is basically putts from 5 to 15 feet, and the reason for that is, I believe, Scott, correct me, but that's kind of like the gap in distance in which elite putters have the best opportunity to separate themselves from average. Is that correct?
The best putters on the PGA Tour separate themselves the most, technically from 5 to 12 feet. But in order to create this, actually, it's based on Maverick McNeely created the putting speed drill, Maverick's modification in the app from 5 to 15 feet. And so I decided to use that. But one thing that's interesting is that's where the best putters on tour separate themselves. But there's something else to that is it's just kind of understood they are all really good at two putting from 20 to 40 feet. So it's kind of I don't know if it's survivorship bias is the right thing, but it's like if you're three putting a bunch from 20 to 40 feet, you just aren't even on tour to begin with. But then the best putters separate themselves most in that somewhat makeable range. And that's a given. We want you doing the foundation speed drill from 20 to 40 feet so you own that just like a tour player. And then we want you really focusing on your read, start lane, and speed combinations in this money zone putting combine. And I've had a number of tour players tell me that when they are practicing, they do their block practice at home, working on their stroke. They go to the course and they do speed drills on a straight of a 20 to 40 foot putt as they can possibly find. And then they just run these putting sim rounds, both money zone and the regular putting sim round, just over and over and over again because you're working on your pre-shot routine, you're working on your read, you're working if you set the lineup on the ball. You've really got to get invested in how you actually go through this process when you're playing. So that way, when you're out there on the course, it's just on autopilot. We don't want you kind of making it up as you go when you're on the course. And that's definitely what I did wrong in my 20s is I just kind of rolled balls all around the green and not really focusing on the minutia in order to get the most out of your practice time.
Yeah, and a quick explanation of the sim putting round. Basically, we took the 18 most common distances, start distances that you're going to get over the course of a round of golf, and we put them into a simulated round. So that way you're able to just go on a putting green and run through a simulated full round of golf on the golf course, right? And this is a great tool, not only like Scott said, for practice and quantifying your progress, but it's also great if you're a player that wants to experiment with left hand low versus conventional or two different putters. You can fire this up and do 5 rounds with conventional and then 5 rounds with left hand low. And in a matter of 5 hours, you've now got a pure apples to apples comparison of which grip you're better putting with, as opposed to having to waste a full month's time of going to play the course 10 times experimenting with the grips.
And that's just a crucial point there to what you're saying there. I mean, you get to experiment. You can see we have the speed ratio in there. You get to experiment with from outside 20 feet. I just want to tap my next putt in. That's my only goal right here. You will see that you will still accidentally make putts, but you're going to three putt a heck of a lot less. You can see that he scored 29 in this. So strokes gained putting was just zero point 0.0 strokes. if you score 29, that is dead on. The expectation is exactly what you should be versus the PGA Tour, which just leave it, don't set it for anything else. Just leave it at PGA Tour because you're just really trying to see if you're getting better or worse. The actual strokes gain numbers largely irrelevant. You just want to see is yours improving or not. It's just a fantastic drill again, created by Chris Zambry, the now USGA national team head coach.
Yeah.
Can't get much better pedigree than that.
And then the remaining ones, we have some line tests and randomized wedge testing. Scott, do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, the line test. So you see there it says 90 to 40 line test. You basically are just hitting your wedges, whatever four clubs you hit from 90 to 140 yards, and you're just hitting them in order. So let's call it, just sand wedge, gap wedge, pitching wedge, nine iron, sand wedge, gap wedge, pitching wedge, nine iron. And you're just measuring how far offline those are relative to your target. Again, circling back to Chris Zambry, he 100% believes he could have picked his teams at USC based solely on these tests and done even better than he did with qualifying scores because it's just basic. Man, can you get your golf ball started online? I mean, and that's going to show how largely in control of the ball you are. And these scores, it's funny because when I first started, I'm just a guy that likes practicing. I've never done combines or, gamified practice or anything like that. But when Chris came to my house and we were running these in my simulator to see if I wanted to actually include them in the app, I have to admit I've got to walk it back a little bit. It was fun, first of all, and second of all, when I had a personal best going, those last three, four, five shots, it's not like I was nervous, like I'm trying to win a golf tournament or something, but I was certainly more engaged, and I definitely wanted to hit good shots, and that's a huge component of practice. One thing that Como's told me about Tiger, and you can read it in Hank Haney's book also, is just the level of focus that guy had during practice is just astronomical. Again, that way, it's my favorite saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. Getting really engaged in practice is the only way. It's not this magical switch that'll flip on when you step on the first tee. You have to learn how to be engaged in practice so that way it's very easy for you to stay engaged out on the golf course while you're playing.
Yeah, thanks. And that's definitely something I suffer with, right? I will commit myself to go practice for an hour, and then I end up just socializing with members for 50 minutes, hitting a couple putts and leaving. So definitely something I can personally be better at. But to your point about the sim putting round, the collegiate players I work with and the LPGA players I work with, this is something that is ingrained in their practice habits because, as you said, the importance is having a way to quantify progress. And that's why I like the sim putting gives you a score so that you establish like I'll be whatever it's 29, 28, 27, whatever your baseline is. And then hopefully in 2 months' time, you're going to see that number trend upwards, trend better, right? Because that's ultimately what we want to do. We want to be able to quantify progress. And any other features or questions you wanted to address, Scott?
No, I think that's perfect, honestly. That sounds
Okay,
great to me.
great. Yeah, so I hope you guys found this to be helpful. We know there's a lot in the app to uncover, and we're hopeful that with the new site design, a lot of it is going to be a lot more accessible, more obvious to you on how to get to it. But if you do have any questions, always reach out to us because we want to make sure you guys get the maximum utility out of the app. And we appreciate you guys watching and look forward to the 2026 golf season.